There is a kind of silence that is not empty. It is heavy. It is the silence that comes after the last explanation has been given, the last tear has been shed, and the last surge of hope has finally receded. It is not a dramatic, door-slamming silence. It is a quiet click of a lock inside your own soul. You did not announce it. You simply stopped. You stopped checking the phone, not with willpower, but with a strange new sense of finality. You stopped replaying conversations, not because you forgot them, but because the energy to do so had simply vanished. This is the empath's final silence, and if you are living inside it right now, you know it feels nothing like the power fantasies they sell online. It doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like exhaustion finally being given a voice. And its voice is quiet. They may have called you cold. They may have accused you of being cruel, of playing a game. And a part of you, the part that has been conditioned to be the good one, the understanding one, flinches at these words. A wave of guilt, familiar and toxic, washes over you. Is this true? Have I become what I always feared? Someone who intentionally causes pain? This is the first and most critical misunderstanding of the journey you are on. Your silence is not an act of aggression. It is an act of survival. It is not a tactic to manipulate their response. It is the final, desperate response of a nervous system that can no longer sustain the pattern. It is the body, wiser than the mind, finally saying, no more. For years, your empathy was a bridge. You sent your energy, your understanding, your patience across that bridge, hoping it would be met halfway. But the traffic was always one way. You became the emotional caretaker, the manager of their moods, the absorber of their chaos. And the bridge, built from the very fiber of your being, began to groan under the strain. The final silence is the moment the bridge is decommissioned, not blown up in a fit of rage, but quietly closed for repairs that may be permanent. The guilt you feel is not evidence that you are wrong. It is the echo of the old role, the ghost of the person you were trained to be, who believed their worth was tied to how much they could carry for others. But this is only the surface story. The deeper truth, the one that can truly set you free, is far more uncomfortable and profound. This silence is not just the end of a dynamic with another person. It is the beginning of a confrontation with yourself. It is the first, terrifying, and sacred step of what the psychologist Carl Jung called individuation. It is the moment you stop being a function in someone else's life and begin the arduous journey of becoming a whole, sovereign individual. To understand what is happening, we must look at the mask you were forced to wear. Jung called this mask the persona. For the empath caught in a manipulative dynamic, the persona is often one of saintly patience, infinite understanding, and boundless compassion. You were the good one. You were the only one who truly got them. You were so strong. This persona was not entirely false. It was built upon your genuine qualities of kindness and empathy. But in this dynamic, those qualities were exaggerated, exploited, and turned into a cage. You wore the mask of the rescuer, the healer, the unflappable anchor in their storm. And for a time, this role gave you a sense of purpose. It felt noble. Your identity became fused with your ability to soothe their chaos, to anticipate their needs, to absorb their projections, and still offer a gentle smile. You were rewarded for this role, not with genuine love or respect, but with just enough validation to keep you performing. You were needed, and for someone whose own needs were long ignored, being needed can feel intoxicatingly close to being loved. The problem with a persona is that it is a one-sided exaggeration of who you are. To maintain the mask of the good person, you had to push everything else into the darkness. Your own anger, your frustration, your exhaustion, your legitimate need for reciprocity. All of these were deemed bad or selfish. They did not fit the mask. So you repressed them. You pushed them down into what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not an evil part of you. It is simply the disowned part. It contains all the impulses, feelings, and truths that your conscious ego and your persona find unacceptable. For the empath, the shadow holds the powerful, life-saving instinct for self-preservation. It holds the righteous anger that says, "This is unjust." It holds the boundary that says, "This far and no further." It holds the no that is a sacred yes to your own soul. For years, you kept this shadow locked away. Every time you felt a flicker of resentment, you doused it with a wave of understanding. Every time your body screamed for rest, you told it to hold on a little longer, because they needed you. You betrayed your own shadow, again and again, to keep the persona of the perfect, giving empath intact. But the unconscious has a way of seeking balance. The more you repress the shadow, the more energy it accumulates in the dark. Eventually, it can no longer be contained. The final silence is not a conscious, strategic decision. It is a shadow rebellion. It is the moment your repressed self-preservation instinct, starved and ignored for so long, finally breaks through the floorboards of your consciousness. It seizes the controls, not with malice, but with the raw, primal force of a living thing fighting for its life. This is why the silence feels so alien, so not like you. Because for a long time, you have been identified only with the persona. You are now meeting the part of yourself you were taught to disown, and its first action is to cut the energetic cord that was draining your life force. It doesn't use words, it doesn't explain, it just acts. It creates silence. This silence becomes a mirror. For so long, you were a mirror for them, reflecting back the idealized version of themselves they wanted to see, or absorbing the negative qualities they couldn't face in themselves. In this new quiet, the mirror has turned around. For the first time, you are being asked to look at your own reflection. And it is terrifying, because without the role of the rescuer, who are you? Without the constant noise of their drama, what do you hear in the stillness of your own heart? This is where the real work begins. The other person's reaction to your silence is, in a way, irrelevant. They may panic, they may lash out, they may try to hoover you back in with sudden apologies and promises of change. They may give you the silent treatment back, hoping to out-silence you and regain control. All of these reactions are simply the predictable death throes of a parasitic system that has lost its host. Their panic is not proof of their love for you. It is proof of their addiction to the role you played. Do not be seduced by this. Their actions are no longer your responsibility. Your focus must remain on the mirror, the guilt, the anxiety, the profound sense of disorientation you feel. These are the first things you will see in your reflection. Let's talk about the guilt. The guilt is the leash. It is the primary tool of control in this kind of dynamic. You have been conditioned to feel guilty for having needs, for saying no, for putting yourself first. This guilt is not a signal from your inner moral compass. It is a complex, in the Jungian sense, an emotionally charged cluster of unconscious beliefs and memories. The "I am only good if I am useful" complex. The "I must not abandon anyone" complex, which is often rooted in your own deep-seated fear of abandonment. When you go silent, you are directly challenging this complex. You are starving it of its power. And so, it screams. It floods your system with guilt, shame, and fear, trying to force you back into the old, familiar pattern of self-abandonment. It tells you you are a bad person. It shows you images of their pain, making you feel responsible for it. Recognizing this guilt as a complex, as an old psychic program running, is the key to disarming it. When the wave of guilt comes, do not merge with it. Observe it. Say to yourself, "This is not me. This is the rescuer complex dying. This is the feeling of the leash pulling tight because I am finally walking away." The guilt is a ghost from the machine you just unplugged. It has no real power over you unless you believe its lies. The silence, then, becomes the container for this profound psychological process. It is the boundary that allows individuation to begin. A boundary is not a wall to punish others. A boundary is the definition of the self. It is the line where you end and another person begins. For the empath, who has been enmeshed in a toxic dynamic, that line was blurred to the point of non-existence. You didn't know where your feelings ended and theirs began. Their anxiety felt like your anxiety. Their crisis was your crisis. The final silence is you drawing that line for the first time, not with a polite request, but with the undeniable reality of your absence. You are, through this action, declaring that you are a separate entity, with a right to your own peace, your own energy, your own life. This is the foundational act of all psychological maturity. Without it, no genuine selfhood is possible. Individuation is the journey of becoming the person you were always meant to be, before the world and its traumas forced you into a persona. It is the process of integrating your light and your shadow, your kindness and your anger, your capacity for connection and your capacity for solitude. It is the path to wholeness. And for you, it begins here, in this uncomfortable, terrifying, and sacred silence. As you sit in this silence, you will start to notice things. You will notice the phantom limb of anxiety, the habitual urge to check your phone, even though you know there will be nothing there. You will notice the moments of sheer panic when the loneliness feels vast. Stay with it. These are the withdrawal symptoms from the addiction to the drama, to the cortisol and adrenaline cycle of the toxic relationship. But you will also notice other things. You will notice a quiet morning where the first thing you think about is not them, but yourself. What would I like to do today? You might notice the return of a forgotten hobby, a song that makes you feel something again, a sudden desire to walk in nature. These are small, fragile shoots of your authentic self, pushing up through the concrete of the old dynamic. Nurture them. They are more important than any message or reaction from the past. The temptation to break the silence will be immense, especially if they launch a campaign to get you back. They might suddenly offer everything you ever begged for. This is the most dangerous moment, because it is almost never genuine change. It is a strategy. It is the system sensing its imminent collapse and making a final, desperate bid for survival. They are not changing because they see your worth. They are changing their tactics because their old ones stopped working. If you break your silence and go back, you will find that the change was temporary. The mask of contrition will fall away, and the old dynamic will reassert itself, often more intensely than before. And worse, you will have taught them what it takes to break you. You will have betrayed the part of yourself that finally stood up for you. The trust in your own shadow, your own instinct, will be shattered, and it will be that much harder to leave the next time. The only way to know if change is real is to hold the boundary. True change in another person happens on their own time, for their own reasons, and it is proven not by words, but by sustained, consistent action over a long period, even in your absence. You are not required to be the audience for their potential transformation. Your job now is to be the protagonist of your own. If this process of individuation is naming something you have felt, but never been able to articulate, take a moment to acknowledge it. This is not just a breakup or a fight. This is a psychic restructuring. You are reclaiming lost pieces of your soul. So, what does this reclamation look like in practice? It looks like turning your attention away from them and onto yourself. It means when the thought, "I wonder what they're doing," arises, you gently but firmly redirect it to, "What am I feeling right now?" It means when the urge to unblock them comes, you instead go for a walk, write in a journal, or call a true friend. You are retraining your brain, your entire being, to find its center within you, not in the validation or reaction of another. This is the integration of the shadow. You are not becoming a cold or unfeeling person. You are integrating the wisdom of your shadow, its ability to protect you. A healthy, individuated person is not just nice. They are whole. They can be kind and compassionate, but they can also be fierce and unyielding when their well-being is threatened. They can love deeply, but they do not abandon themselves in the process. Their empathy is a gift they choose to share, not a resource to be plundered. The mirror of silence will show you the parts of you that need healing. It will show you the inner child who learned that love was conditional on being good and quiet. It will show you the wounds that made you susceptible to this dynamic in the first place. This is painful, but it is the only way to true freedom. You cannot heal what you do not see. As time passes in this silence, a strange thing happens. The silence begins to change its quality. The initial heaviness, the weight of everything unsaid, begins to lift. The emptiness starts to feel less like a void and more like open space. It becomes a space of potential, a space where you can finally hear your own thoughts, feel your own feelings, and dream your own dreams without the constant static of their needs. This is when you know you are healing. The silence is no longer about them. It is about you. It is no longer a painful absence, but a generative presence. It is your sanctuary. It is the quiet room where you are rebuilding your life, piece by piece, on a foundation of self-worth and authenticity. The question of whether they will ever understand or regret their actions becomes less and less important. You begin to realize that their closure is not required for your peace. Your peace comes from closing the door yourself. It comes from accepting that you cannot change them. but you can, and did, change the dynamic by removing your participation. This final silence is the ultimate act of taking back your power. Not power over them, but power over yourself. The power to choose peace over chaos. The power to choose your own well-being over their comfort. The power to define your own worth, independent of their approval. You are not just ending a relationship or a friendship. You are ending a way of being. You are letting the persona of the martyr die, so that the whole, integrated self can be born. This is a sacred, painful, and beautiful process. It is the hardest work you will ever do, and it is the only work that truly matters. Let the silence hold you. Let it teach you. In its depths, you will not find the monster you were told you were becoming. You will find the person you were always meant to be, waiting patiently for you to finally come home to yourself. The mirror is clear now. Look closely. The reflection is no longer distorted by their needs. It is just you, whole, free, and finally, at peace. My silence is not a weapon. It is my sanctuary. It is a sacred contract with your own soul, witnessed by no one but you. And like any profound spiritual practice, it begins to alter you from the inside out, on levels you are only just beginning to perceive. One of the first and most profound changes happens in the one place the trauma has been stored most deeply, your body. For years, your body has been a silent battlefield. Your nervous system has been locked in a state of high alert, a low-grade but constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. Think of the clenched jaw you didn't even notice until it ached at night. The shallow breaths you took from the top of your chest, always ready for the next crisis. The shoulders that lived permanently hunched up around your ears, bracing for impact. This was the physical manifestation of your enmeshment. Your body was holding the tension they created, carrying the anxiety they refused to own. In the sanctuary of your silence, your body finally receives the message that the war is over. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in subtle, quiet waves of release. One day, you might be washing dishes and realize your jaw is relaxed. You might be driving and take a deep, belly-filling breath for the first time in years, and the sheer novelty of it might bring you to tears. You might wake up and notice that the chronic knot of tension in your back has softened. This is not just relaxation. This is your body memory layer beginning to heal. It is your nervous system, slowly, cautiously, learning the new language of safety. But this physical unwinding can also be disorienting. You may experience what feels like somatic ghosts, a random pang of anxiety that grips your stomach for no reason, a sudden wave of sadness that washes over you when a particular song plays, a jolt of adrenaline when your phone rings, even when you know it is not them. This is the body purging the old patterns. It is the echo of years of conditioning. Do not be afraid of it. Greet these sensations with the same quiet observation you were learning to give your thoughts. Place a hand on your chest and say, "It's okay, you are safe now. That was then. This is now." You are, in a very real sense, reparenting your own nervous system, teaching it that peace is not the temporary quiet between storms, but the new climate you inhabit. As your body learns safety, your inner world begins to reorganize itself. You start to notice more concrete signs of your integration. One of the most significant is the return of nuance. In the toxic dynamic, your thinking was likely black and white. You were the good one, they were the difficult one. Or, in moments of guilt, you were the cruel one, and they were the victim. This polarized thinking is a hallmark of trauma. Now, in the quiet, a different kind of perception emerges. You begin to see the dynamic with a compassionate detachment. You can see their wounding, perhaps tracing it back through their own history, and you can feel a genuine human sadness for the pain that drives them. But here is the crucial difference. You no longer feel responsible for it. The sadness is clean. It is not tangled up with the urge to fix, to rescue, to go back. You can see the tragedy of their situation without making it your own. This ability to feel compassion without enmeshment is a profound sign that your shadow, the part of you that holds healthy boundaries, is being integrated. Another sign is the sharpening of your intuition. Before, your intuition was likely just anxiety in disguise. It was a frantic, fearful internal chatter, obsessed with predicting their moods and preempting conflict. Now, you begin to hear a different voice. It is quieter. It is calm. It doesn't scream "what if?" It simply states "this is." It doesn't offer panicked solutions. It offers a simple sense of knowing. You might think of someone you haven't spoken to in ages, and they call the next day. You might get a sudden feeling that you should take a different route home, only to learn later you avoided a major traffic jam. This is your true intuitive faculty, no longer drowned out by the noise of someone else's chaos. You are learning to trust this quiet guidance. It is the compass of your individuated self. But perhaps the most challenging and liberating phase of this journey comes much later, when you are no longer in the acute stage of withdrawal. It is the late practical test. It often arrives unannounced, months or even a year into your silence, when you feel you have finally found your footing. It might be an accidental encounter in a grocery store. You turn a corner, and there they are. In that split second, your body will remember. A jolt of cortisol will hit your system. Your heart will hammer against your ribs. The old script, the one where you manage the encounter, smooth it over, and check their emotional temperature, will flash in your mind. This is the moment of truth. The old you would have either fled in a panic or approached with a nervous, appeasing smile. But the new, integrated you does something different. You feel the jolt. You acknowledge it as a somatic echo, and you breathe. You do not hide. You do not engage in a performance. You might offer a brief, neutral nod of acknowledgement, the kind you would give any stranger, and then you turn your attention back to the avocados. You continue your shopping. Your peace is no longer contingent on their presence or their reaction. You have just passed a profound test. You have proven to yourself that your center of gravity is now firmly located inside you. Or the test might come through a third party. A mutual friend reaches out, perhaps with a seemingly innocent message. "Hey, I was just thinking about you. I hope you're doing okay." Your old persona, the rescuer, would see this as an opportunity to explain, to justify your silence, to manage your reputation. You would have typed out a long, emotionally laborious paragraph, defending your position. The individuated self responds differently. It recognizes the inquiry for what it often is, a probe, a flying monkey sent to gather information. And so, you respond with calm, kind, and impeccable boundaries. "It's so good to hear from you. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm not discussing that situation, but I'd love to hear how you are." You do not offer them the drama they are seeking. You do not give them any energy to take back to the old system. You hold your boundary not with a wall of anger, but with the quiet dignity of a closed door. This is the mastery of the integrated shadow. It is not aggressive, it is simply clear. This is the true gift of integrating your shadow. It is not about becoming angry, bitter, or permanently guarded. It is about transmuting the raw, repressed energy of self-preservation into the refined skill of discernment. Discernment is the highest form of your empathy. It is empathy guided by wisdom. It allows you to feel into a situation, to sense the emotional truth of a person, but without being pulled into their vortex. You can now recognize red flags not as a challenge to be healed, but as simple information. A red flag is no longer an invitation to a rescue mission. It is a signpost directing you toward your own path, away from a dead end. You are moving from being an unconscious empath, a psychic sponge absorbing everything indiscriminately, to a conscious empath. Think of the difference between a sponge and a lighthouse. A sponge is passive. It soaks up whatever liquid it is placed in, clean or toxic. A lighthouse, on the other hand, is active. It stands firm on its own foundation. It does not chase ships, and it does not abandon its post. It simply shines its light, a steady, reliable beacon. It illuminates the rocks and the safe passages alike, and it trusts the ships to navigate their own course. This is who you are becoming. Your empathy is no longer a liability that drains you. It is your light. You can shine it into the world, offering warmth and clarity, but you remain rooted in your own sovereign ground. You are no longer afraid of the dark, in others or in yourself, because you have brought your own light into it. This journey, which began in the deafening silence of an ending, transforms you. You become more, not less, capable of true intimacy, because now you can enter into a connection not from a place of hunger or a need to be needed, but from a place of wholeness. You can love another person without losing yourself, because you have finally found yourself. You can give freely, because you are no longer giving from a place of deficit. The silence was the crucible. It was the necessary void, but it is not the final destination. The destination is a life lived in alignment with your own soul, a life where your yes is wholehearted and your no is complete, and both come from the same place of self-love. Look back one last time at the path you have walked. From the exhausted quiet, through the confrontation with the shadow, to the recalibration of your body and the passing of the tests. You did not become cold, you became clear. You did not become cruel, you became wise. The silence was not the end of the story. It was the turning of the page. It was the beginning of the chapter that is entirely, beautifully, and unapologetically yours. And the sound you hear now is not silence. It is the quiet, steady, peaceful rhythm of your own heart, beating for you and you alone. You are home.